I'm Kit Hall from the Language Connects Foundation, and I'm joined by Britt Marie Solis from Klett World Languages. I'm also really excited that Marty Abbott, who is the interim executive director of ACFL, is able to join us today and is in the audience. And today's panel discussion will focus on a topic that's really important to all of us, sustainable development in world language curriculum and its profound effects on global citizenship.
Hi, everyone. As we embark on this enriching dialogue, it is a pleasure to be here with all of you. Throughout today's discussion, we want to explore the intersections between language education and sustainability, while also shedding light on innovative approaches, inspiring initiatives, and practical strategies that promote sustainability awareness and cultural understanding.
So our goal today is to explore the importance of integrating sustainability into language education and to showcase its tangible benefits to students, educators, and their communities.
Absolutely. And we are so honored to be joined by an amazing panel of educators who have demonstrated exceptional dedication and creativity in incorporating sustainability into their language curricula. Allow me to introduce our panelists, who are also the winners of last year's LCF, Klett World Languages Award for Sustainable Development in Education in the World Language Classroom. Heidi Lechner from Libertyville High School in Illinois, and Beatrix Preusse-Burr and Andrea Martin from Fairfax County Public Schools.
These educators have inspired their students and peers with innovative approaches, and we're really excited to have them share their insights and experience with us all today.
Additionally, we are delighted to have Dr. Megan Ferry, Professor of Chinese and Asian Studies at Union College, moderating our conversation. Dr. Ferry's expertise in language education and sustainable development will guide our dialogue and exchange of ideas. We're grateful for her participation in today's discussion.
And we hope by the end of this session, you'll feel equipped to integrate these practices into your own teaching. And we'll leave some time at the end of the session for questions. So please drop any questions you have into the Q&A, not the chat, please. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Ferry.
Well, I'm excited. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all panelists. I want to start us off by asking you to tell us a little bit an overview of your projects, maybe the story that you have that you tell that sort of got you involved in these projects, and what inspired you to incorporate sustainability in the language classroom. So I don't know, whoever would like to start first, please tell us your story. I'll ask Heidi. Heidi, can I jump in? Can I call on you?
Of course, of course. Hello, my name is Heidi Lechner, as I was already introduced, and I live in Illinois. I teach at a school about an hour north of Chicago, and I kind of have a longer project to describe, but I'll keep it short enough, Megan. About 5 years ago, our school district decided to embark upon joining the Illinois Certificate Program for Global Scholar Studies. I don't know if I got the name right, but it was a new initiative in the area, and students could enroll in 8 Global Scholar courses throughout their 4 years, take a capstone course, and do a service learning project, and then get a certificate, kind of like the seal of biliteracy, a sticker on their transcript. So I did have 1 or 2 students that went through this program, but what it meant was I had to tweak my program and all of my curriculum from levels 1 through 4 to really incorporate all of the sustainable development goals. And I know we'll talk a little bit later how to do that, but it also seemed to me really intriguing because we are world language and we have global scholars just by being in our classroom. So it really helped make the conversation more lively, and I do a lot of current events anyway, a lot of project-based learning. Right around that time, I also incorporated a lot of virtual exchanges, because then we immediately went into the pandemic, and I still use those today. And just the whole tweaking and changing the curriculum a little bit, and really having the focus be on the goals, have given the kids a central point of what to talk about throughout their entire German career, and it's really made it more engaging.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like it's been quite impactful. Beatrice and Andrea, if you want to talk about what's the overview of your project and or your initiative and the story behind it.
Yes, so I'm Beatrix Preusse-Burr, was introduced. I work for Fairfax County Public Schools. I actually started university level and then taught everything all the way down to elementary, ended up in DLI. And I've always looked for ways to make language learning more meaningful, more authentic, creating contexts where kids would use the language then naturally and be motivated by these natural occurring things to further their language and also their cultural competencies. So that's kind of where I personally was. In Fairfax, I taught DLI for 7 years before I went to a central office where I then designed curriculum assessments, et cetera, et cetera. But that gave me the wider lens. So as a teacher, I was just integrating questions of social justice, questions of environmental justice into my lessons in DLI. So it fit really well with the curriculum as I was investigating. We were looking at these real world problems, and I noticed that that got kids really engaged and at the edge of their seats. So fast forward several years, we were looking as a county, how can we expand language opportunities for our students, and how can we internationalize the curriculum? So out of that project, or out of that plan, came the Global Classroom, what we know today as the Global Classroom Project. And what we were after was not every student can travel and have those cultural experiences in country. So we're trying to recreate or create something where we could still connect and have cultural experiences with peers through world language classrooms, but also through other classrooms in the county. So the Global Classroom Project was born. We are connecting virtually our teachers with a partner teacher in another country. And for world languages, it's the target language partner country. So the kids are the teachers are discussing the content, they're discussing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal that they would like to focus on. And then they're also getting their kids engaged, discussing peer-to-peer what actions they would like to take. And of course, they introduce each other, they talk about their hobbies, they talk about their lives as well. And all the while they're investigating this global goal that they want to take action on. So we have several pathways that teachers can pick, but the cornerstone is really that virtual connection, student to student, and it's really motivating for the kids. They really want to practice and want to use that language. And teachers have reported to us that kids have learned vocabulary that they would have never dreamt of in a level 2 or a level 1 class, because they were getting ready for a connection with their target country partners. So that's kind of that background on the Global Classroom Project. And I'll kick it over to Andrea, and she can fill in what I haven't said.
Okay, well, Beatrix, thank you very much. Beatrix and I work on the same Global Classroom Project team. I'm a former world languages teacher, but current technology specialist. So our lenses are different as we approach the project. And from my perspective, anytime you can incorporate current events, SDGs, global initiatives is going to be a benefit for students, especially in the age of artificial intelligence, where we may have questions or concerns about, I could do this much easier on a technology pathway than maybe I could. Why is it important to maintain our language skills, our intercultural skills? It's because that's how we solve global challenges. And
that's
go ahead.
No, I'm gonna have a specific question for you with technology before we move to that with that technology, because what we're also looking at is students and struggle, right? Struggle with learning or with effort, right? But there's a positive struggle and that you come to learn more and opens the door for growth. But I wanted to ask both Heidi and Beatrix that in the classroom, how do you incorporate then these SDG goals with what we have are these traditional classrooms, like we have this traditional idea of the first year, the second year, third year, and vocabulary that we mentioned that Beatrix, you said they're learning things beyond. How do you integrate or how do you balance those language learning objectives and ensuring that that the sustainability topics resonate with the students? Maybe if you have a brief example that you can share with us. I'm sure you have several. Heidi, you want to start with us?
Sorry, I should just stay unmuted. Sorry. Yeah, simply like from novice level, you're right. I mean, a lot of people are overwhelmed. So when I talk about it, I say, okay, well, we start small. For instance, weather. Weather is always one of the first topics you learn in a world language. But if you throw in the word climate change or hurricane, which we don't have hurricanes here in North America, but it grabs their interest, or, global warming. Why is that on my German 1 list? And it really gets them intrigued. And then they look at the poster on the wall of all of the 17 goals that we have, and they start to make connections. So it's little things like that, pointing out the goals, because you don't have to teach them all to memorize, they just inherently learn them as you're talking about them. So that's just tweaking, I'm using that word again, but your vocabulary list a little bit, it's just a nice way to introduce the students.
So a lot of it is still using the same context, but shifting, as you say, some of the vocabulary, but the focus is moving to a broader lens, or they have greater vocabulary to speak to some of the issues that are happening. Beatrix, what's your experience?
So let's take, I'm teaching a level 1, and we've done these global classroom projects with level 1 students. And they connected with native speaking students. They were English learners, for instance. Let's take Colombia. We're teaching food. We would teach what we are tasked to teach by our program of studies regardless. So we have the language objectives, the some of the cultural objectives. And we are finding that our language gets really expanded because the kids really want to learn how to say what they find very personal, what their personal preferences are in terms of food. While if they're just sitting in the classroom and learning the vocabulary, they may not be as interested in sharing their personal preferences, their personal, what their grocery stores look like, what their cafeterias look like. Because now we've given it an authentic audience, a school and a partner class in Colombia. Now they get to learn, what does a cafeteria look like in Colombia? They learn about each other's school days. So you're spiraling actually in other vocabulary that you might be teaching later on or might have taught earlier on. So it's a much more natural way of kids wanting to learn the vocabulary. You asked me about a specific project. It was a classroom they connected on, for instance, zero hunger and or health and wellness. And the unit was food, but they created actually a students in Colombia, students in Fairfax County. They created a website and they created classroom favorite recipes for healthy living. So that's an incredible project for your first year level 1 students. And they learned a lot about food markets in Colombia, and they came up with new cafeteria menus. So there's a lot of authentic language usage. And I think they also inspired each other to maybe try other things. And so that intercultural and that cultural competency was baked into the project. The teacher said we didn't even have to try super hard to find cultural connections because they came naturally with the connection.
So it sounds like a lot of this authentic, both vocabulary as well as ability to engage or to spark their curiosity. If you don't have, for instance, hurricanes in your area, but to spark that curiosity for students to look beyond the classroom and beyond themselves and integrate. And this is where I cut you off, Andrea, but I know you have so much to say in terms of helping us communicate and collaborate. When you're talking about AI, we don't have that kind of communication and collaboration. So if you could talk about how you help with collaborating with either subject area teachers or what your experience has been there with AI and that interdisciplinary and intercultural, helping foster that intercultural understanding.
Yes, I can talk about AI for a long time, but I'll keep it brief. What we've discovered really is that it's not a difficult task to engage students in global action, that the topic itself, there's a natural curiosity and just this heightened engagement when we offer students these opportunities to interact outside of their classroom with their peers. And through technology, we can do that. It's not a requirement. Handwritten letters and the actual mail carrier service does work also. And the exchange of, which we've done before when we have partnerships with countries that are in, say, an opposite time zone, with a 12-hour difference. We're not going to do Zoom collaboration. And so mailing things back and forth is very efficient and very engaging. When we do have the opportunity, though, to use real-time tools, to use Zoom or to use another platform to talk and engage and actually see the community, it really puts that language acquisition and the interculturality into practice. The collaboration becomes part of the whole experience. And then the focus on the global challenge, each partner has a stake in the outcome because we all share one planet. So each partner can have a different focus depending on what's going on in their particular part of the world. The teachers also benefit from this kind of exchange because that kind of teacher peer-to-peer collaboration can be hard to find in a typical American school day. And to share strategies and ideas from different perspectives, that is as powerful as what we see with our students.
Now, your project in Fairfax, the Fairfax Public Schools, is an international exchange. Heidi, I don't think yours is an international exchange. Are you working locally with partners or?
Both. I have colleagues here that I do like a Padlet exchange and share videos. But no, for the last 4 years, I've worked with Boomerang and Talk Abroad, 2 companies that host. I pay for 15-minute conversations with German and Austrian speakers, and they're not peers. Most of them are college students or teachers, and we schedule the conversations during class, and then they are usually based on the current interpersonal task. So students are able to then prepare, and it's toward the end of the unit, and feel more comfortable. But it does have a mix of proficiency and performance, as you said. It's bringing in, small talk, which on the spot, but also we can bring in the topics that we've been talking about for weeks.
And that's also not necessarily a requirement for people who are thinking of initiating a project such as this and integrating the Sustainable Development Goals. They don't necessarily need to already have an international partner, but this is something that they could also start locally. I just want to point that out. I want to go to ask about your challenges. And I know that we all have challenges, but I also want to ask about challenges that you've been able to overcome. So we can all sort of say and to get stuck in the challenges because we always are facing new challenges. But what are some challenges that you faced in implementing this sustainability in your language education, and how have you overcome them? Maybe an example or two of how, example of one or two. Anyone? I have no challenges whatsoever. Everything's gone smoothly for all of you.
Well, I was going to say, I work in a district with a community who's very supportive of discourse and ideas. At the same time, I have students who are not necessarily convinced that they want to believe in some of the sustainability goals and products as some of the other students. So for instance, some kids that drive giant trucks that guzzle, gas, they're not really willing to talk or, commit to a greener lifestyle. And so I'm not there to preach. And I found very quickly, if I just make this a cultural comparison and focus on the interculturality of Germany, which is one of the trailblazers in sustainability, and stick to the cultural comparison and not preach that this is what they should be doing, but rather keep it a very neutral topic, I have had wild success with it because students feel comfortable. They're like, oh, I can just talk about it as a neutral subject, certainly for German class, while other kids really, do embrace some of these ideals. And I think around our country, I've worked with some teachers who unfortunately have nearly been fired for even mentioning the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I have told them, as I consult on the side, look at it through the interculturality lens, take away the politics, focus on what are, okay, let's talk about zero food or zero hunger. And you're talking about food, just compare the foods. Don't make it a political statement, I would say. So those are ways that I've worked with other teachers that have had difficulties.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Beatrice.
Yes, so for us, because it involves that international connection, finding enough partners for other teachers who would like to participate. We have also found that it's very helpful if we form a team at the school where teachers, it's not just the classroom teacher or a single teacher, that we are bringing in like somebody from library services or school librarian, or a science teacher or a STEAM teacher, so that they can really deeply explore those sustainable development goals, because as language teachers, we might not feel that we are an expert in, environmental protection, or that we are an expert in certain areas of these goals, but there are experts within your school. So we are really encouraging that collaboration among teachers across the curriculum. The other piece that we at the central office have in place is a global classroom project team, where we have also specialists from different areas in the county, from different content areas, science, Get to Green, we have STEAM, World Languages, IB, etc. Andrea for technology sit together on this team as we are preparing curriculum and supporting teachers. So there is support that we have in place. Another, because of that international partnership connection that we have, another challenge we found is we need to make sure that we partner teachers that are linguistically, so to speak, compatible. For instance, if the partner teacher does not speak English well enough so that the teachers can have a content, methodology, pedagogy discussion on how they are going to go about implementing these goals and what actions to take, then it's very difficult to sustain these type of partnerships. So we have somebody also in place who's playing matchmaker, so to speak, and is matching colleagues so that we make sure that it works out and is successful for the students because they are looking forward to it, and also for the teachers, because I consider it also part of their professional learning and development, because they are connecting and with another partner who is authentic from that target country. They may not know all the ins and outs of many of the other Spanish-speaking cultures, for instance. So the teachers themselves are furthering their intercultural competency as well.
So it sounds like it takes a team at some level, maybe a small team or a larger team, depending on the size of the project that you want to be working with. But it also takes not even perhaps a team that's doing things with, but also people you can reach out to and ask questions, like ask questions of, as Heidi was saying, if you're in a state where you're not allowed to be able to talk about SDG goals because it trips a political wire, but there are ways in which we can understand our superpowers as language educators, that our intercultural competency and intercultural engagement is beyond the politics of it. It's really about opening and communication, human communication, and human well-being, which is what we're seeing with these UN SDG goals. So what advice would you give educators who are interested and are curious about incorporating sustainability in the language curriculum, but not sure where to start? I'm sure we have many people in the audience who maybe have already been teaching incorporating SDG goals, but maybe we also have some are curious and don't yet know where they could get their feet wet. If you have some advice for them.
I always say start with your passion. Because if you are passionate about the goal, if you have a passion that, for instance, you want to work towards world peace, or you want to work towards a cleaner environment, you want to work towards zero hunger, it's a great place to start for yourself personally, because as you're filling, it will fill your bucket to have your students learn about your passion, and the students will pick up on that. And have also look at your students. What are they interested in? Maybe, and you will find that all these goals are actually very interconnected. So even I might pick zero hunger, I might actually end up with looking even at then at education, et cetera, et cetera. So they're very interconnected. And then give your students the choice. Maybe they can take that goal that you're passionate about and come at it from a different perspective. Look at the content that you're teaching, and you will actually find there are 17 goals. And you will actually find with those 17 goals, you will be able to somehow make a connection to the content that you're teaching. And it's a great way to have more of a hands-on, practical, authentic way of approaching your content when you're using the Sustainable Development Goals really as a framework for world language and intercultural competency explorations with your students. Yeah. So it's all about the passion.
Passion and these authentic issues, right? That either come with you out of your passion, but that you also see that you share that with your students, and that even goals that don't look like they work in tandem with each other, they actually in many ways do and make connections. Heidi, what kind of advice would you give?
I would say more nuts and bolts. Google resources. The United Nations has made an enormous amount of resources for us, finished curriculum that are in all languages, and also apply from elementary school up to college level. And I found I work with the Goethe Institute the last few years, and they have a sustainable poster contest for the last few years that we've worked with. And it's free, and it's just what Beatrix was talking about. It's identifying a problem in your area, connecting to a goal, problem solving, and then presenting. And the engagement has been wonderful, but that's ready there for them. And so I think looking at one, like we were talking about, goals that all connect, little things like a 2-minute video on the travel, what is it called in German? Reise einer Jeans, the travel route of a pair of jeans. And we talked about that for 2 weeks in I don't even remember what unit. It would be a fashion unit or a clothing unit, but you can tie in so many different things with just using maybe one little video that you find that
And so we do have resources that are out there that are organizations, so not just the United Nations that has prepared very nice packets of information in multiple languages, but then also our different language associations or different organizations like the Goethe Institute have already sort of projects in place or competitions in place. So there are other entities that are available to us to be reaching out. Andrea, do you have any advice also for educators interested in starting but don't know where?
I would say consider the technology tools that you might need to accomplish what your goals are. So think about what your goals are, what is within your scope, and how you would use technology to accomplish those goals. If an international partnership is not possible, then what local experts might you be able to connect with who could either come to your school, which is no technology, or who would be willing to meet virtually with you and your students, who could share their perspectives? What people do you already have within your school community? What parents might be able to come in and discuss their work that would connect with one or multiple of the SDGs? Think about what your goal is, and then work backwards from that into how you can enhance what you're doing with technology, or if that's not a possibility, how will you go around that and make those connections live or in person?
And I like that you have us do a 360 within our own communities to see who's available to us. We think we already know, or we know it's available, but sometimes when we take a second look, right, if we have those goals in mind, we end up finding people that had been in front of us all along that we could certainly pull from as a resource. That's an excellent suggestion. So how can, if we take the lens from that micro level of community and from the international level, how can policymakers and educational institutions, that's a larger macro lens, better support educators who want to integrate sustainability into their language education? There are certain changes that need to be made on a larger scale. We're sort of thinking of sort of the larger level here. Any ideas or suggestions on what our policymakers and our educational institutions can do to better support the kind of work that you're doing?
I think recognizing world language is a start as a needed part of helping us become a global society. I think last I heard, only 11 of the 50 states had a high school graduation requirement with a language. Many, students do take 2 years because that's what they need to be admitted to university. And I find that, obviously that's our big goal here, is to get more students learning languages, but I think that would be a big start, would be to acknowledge it's been a great rollout. We now have 50 states that are working with the Seal of Biliteracy and offering it. And like I had mentioned before, the Illinois Seal of Global Studies, something like that would also be it hasn't quite made it through the legal channels, but they were trying to get college credits for having that sort of seal, just like the Seal of Biliteracy, and offering something like that in all the states to incorporate both the sustainability factor and the world languages portion, I think would really create more global citizens in our world.
So Heidi already mentioned the global seals. I'll take a stab at from a different perspective. What really brought the Global Classroom Project into being in Fairfax County was actually a school board initiative. It was called the World Languages and Internationalization Focus Group. And there was a plan that was put in place to expand elementary world language offerings, that expand dual language immersion, that expand world language offerings in general at the middle and high school level, to give a lot more students access and opportunity. And part of that was a look at giving all Fairfax County students the opportunity to have these international connections, either through travel or, and that is the route that we've chosen because it's accessible to all, is the virtual connection. And that's where the Global Classroom Project really came from. So it was a school board initiative actually within Fairfax County. In terms of more help from policymakers, what would be helpful is also including global competencies in what we call the profiles of the graduate, because we're looking at these soft skills or durable skills or whichever type of wording you're using to describe the competencies and that students need to be successful in this interconnected world, right? We don't just, it's not just about the language, it's also about being able to communicate, knowing how to communicate in the various contexts, because our kids will be working on international teams solving global problems.
Well, this is
So-
something that's so wonderful about the three of you, and your projects here do speak to that it's not just language and it's not just culture as these separate entities, but these are things that are absolutely integrated with each other, and they're integrated because we're humans and we want to have a sustainable life, and this is what the SDG goals are. And that communication that I know, Andrea, I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that as well, that communication, whether it is with a local community, local or internationally, is really important to us. Andrea, do you want to add did you have anything to add on that question?
It is incredibly important for advocacy. And as Beatrix alluded to the school board, you can start locally with your advocacy and then branch out. It doesn't have to be at the federal level. You can certainly advocate within your community for the importance, and projects like this that give students the opportunity to use those skills in real world, like right now, opportunities and situations, that gets them coming back, because then they see the relevance of learning the vocabulary about food, learning the vocabulary about clothing, because they have to use it. They have to use it in a culturally responsive way, and it brings meaning that you cannot get from a machine.
And you get the words from the students on the value of language and culture through that experience. They're our best advocates in speaking to what they gained from it and how it's so different from any other way of studying.
And if it's possible to include student voice in that advocacy, we have found that is a critical piece. When the adults making decisions hear from the students,
that's right,
that has an impact that is unquantifiable.
It's powerful, and their insights and their views are also quite powerful in helping us think differently. So I would like, part of this webinar is we want to encourage more people to be applying for this award, so that they can start their journey and their projects to be in community with these amazing projects that you three have put together. Could you talk about what motivated you to participate in this LCF Klett Award for Sustainable Development Education in the World Classroom? What got you into doing this? And then why would you recommend it to other educators? So who wants to start?
I guess I can start. So in Virginia, we have a group called Global Virginia, which does some of this work and does policy work and advocacy. So, and we do have summits, and we put together panels and practitioner panels, and one of the panelists was a colleague who talked about the Global Classroom Project. And so as this Klett Award was announced for sustainable development in the world language classroom, my phone started going, hey, you have to go for this. We're going to support you. Just go for it. And then, it was a great reflective process also. As we were putting this dossier together. It's really not that much work, but it gave us a chance to really also take stock in how far have we actually come, and what have we accomplished. So it was a great reflective tool, and of course it felt great to be nudged by colleagues from my professional network that say, hey, you all, this award feels like they created it for you all.
Excellent.
So before Heidi starts, I'll add, because Beatrix and I were on the same project, Beatrix asked me to, and that's why I did, because she brought it to me and said, we have to do this. And I said, okay. Beatrix and I are great friends, and this was a wonderful opportunity. And she was right. The reflective process did bring a lot to it. Yeah, so we certainly appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, when I saw it announced, it was about this time last year, and I actually just left because I was working with my capstone course, my German 4s at the time. They had been learning for 4 years about the global goals so much that it became a class habit. I won't say joke because they took it seriously. They would shout out SDG 3 in German, of course, Ziel Nummer 16 within like any random context, talking about fairy tales, we're talking about the news, and every day someone would refer to what goal that connected to. And so I was working with this group and I'm like, oh, we need to do this. And I do a lot of end of the year reflections with them. So I said, all right, one of the things you're going to do is you're going to write a letter of support. I showed them what the award was and said, I think we can win this, because I made it a team effort. I said, our group, our school can do this. And you are like the cornerstone. They were the first class that had really gone through all 4 years of the new curriculum. And so I had them write a letter of support with examples. They went through all their Google Drives of what they had done over the 4 years to really satisfy all of the goals. I'm not sure if we hit all 17, but they wrote an example of what they learned and the topic and how it affected them in a little reflection. And I used some of that. And I said, okay, you've helped me write this. And so I will apply, because they were so enthusiastic and it really made an impact. And most of them went on in college. And I think that's one of the, even if they just take a course or two, I think that's all of our high school goals. To get them through the 4 years is magic enough. Then to go on and really, either study abroad, even if they're not majoring on it. So to me, this was just overwhelming to have such support just from within the classroom.
So you sparked some lifelong learning. And so it's not just talking about reflection about for yourself and where you've been with your curriculum and development of students, but it's allowing the students to look back and see, wow, look how far we've come. And be able to see, look how far they've come, and that effort and that struggle, right? The positive struggle. It's like, wow, this was a lot of fun. We have a lot of rewards. And that really encourages them to go further, as you're saying, is lifelong learning either in college, even if they're not majoring in German, which we hope they do, or double major. But what you have planted is the seed of that intercultural and linguistic competency that's going to carry with them all throughout, right, and beyond the classroom. So it's wonderful that all of you have done this. I want to turn this back to talk about reflections. I think it's going back to Kit to talk about sort of overall reflections as we wrap up. And again, I want to encourage you, if you have questions in the Q&A, please go ahead, put them in the Q&A.
Sure, and I dropped into the chat the link to the Klett Award page on the Language Connects Foundation website. We are accepting nominations for the second year of this program. So we encourage you all to nominate a colleague or yourself, to all those attendees. And thank you all. Thanks to our panelists. We have some great questions here in as well. The first was that could Heidi provide the information regarding the poster contest? So we can send the list of those resources to all attendees following the session. Would it be possible for panelists to share how they showcase their work to promote the SDGs and linguistic and intercultural competence within and beyond their communities? Anyone want to jump in and answer that one?
Yeah, I can jump in. The Global Classroom Project, we have an annual showcase where we invite community and where we invite actually speakers. We've had we were fortunate to forge relationships with Brookings and several other institutions in the area who are willing to support this. So it's always a great event, and it is, we talk a little bit about the SDGs, but then we also give a lot of student voice. And last year we had a teacher panel with the teachers in FCPS with their partners actually participated. So that's how we are advertising it. We run an academy course to learn how to implement the SDGs or the Global Classroom Project in the classrooms. So we have several ways of how we publicize it, but in terms of exhibition of learning is what we do once a year with the students, and everybody is invited to showcase their work, their action that they've taken with their partner classes.
I will also add to that, part of the project is for students to take action on a local, national, or global level. And so we've had some of our older students who make websites that it's a joint collaborative project with their partners, and those are visible to everyone who has access to the internet and can search it. So we do encourage students to find that local, national, or global audience so that they can share what they've done, even beyond our local area.
Great. And Heidi, any ways that you in particular?
I communicate with parents on a regular basis. I sent out newsletters twice a month with pictures of what we're doing in class and incorporate explanations. And that really hit the community and during some of the projects that we did. So that became well known within our school and our district and community. We've had open houses, kind of like you were talking about, on a smaller level. We had an upcycling project. So kids had to make an upcycle project, create a poster, and then we invited parents and students into the library space for 2 hours. And one child was only speaking German and their partner had to be the translator, and then interact and answer questions. And that was a lot of fun. So yeah, there are definitely ways. And then the international piece, we worked with, like I said, the Goethe Institute twice. We were allowed to have international connections with experts that came and talked to us about our projects. And yeah, there's so many levels of how to reach out. They're out there. It sounds daunting, but there's a lot of people out there to help.
Great, thank you. Another question, could you speak about how you approach the use of online translators and such tools regarding productions, written or speaking?
Sure. Google Translate is an amazing technology, and as is AI. Andrea, I'm with you. AI is just so much fun, and it is the future. And I think educators have to educate themselves in it. They can't shut themselves away. They have to know what's out there. And I think a lot of us know more than what the students know, but the kids know how to open the phone and translate things. I avoid it by making things relevant. And students they don't just produce, sentences that are on the board and mimic or old role plays where you would memorize things. Things are live and they're moving and it's personal, and students have to be able to talk about themselves and make it meaningful. And when you come at it with that lens, proficiency follows. And if your partner in class doesn't understand what you're saying, I always tell the students, then you're not making yourself clear and you're obviously using a translator. Like the kids call each other on it. We're very open about not using Google Translate because it's defeating the purpose of making yourself comprehensible from novice to intermediate and hopefully advanced. And I've switched everything, especially from the pandemic. Anything that's Googleable, as I say, for an assessment is not an assessment. You have to change your thinking to what can kids do right in front of you in the classroom. There's no more take-home projects, unfortunately. I know a lot of people grapple with that because there's not enough time for minutes of instruction. But things don't have to be long. You can make it shorter and make it work for you to avoid pitfalls of AI and translation technologies.
And what we've also found is kids want to have these authentic connections. They might look up a word or two, and it helps them incorporate new vocabulary into their language. But when it comes to connecting, they still want that authenticity. They don't want to do it through a Google screen or a Google interpreter.
And really, it depends on the purpose of the technology. There's a lot to say, a lot of positive impact of having a personal AI coach to have an individual chat before you share with someone else, before you go live and have a face-to-face conversation. So students may need that extra practice. They may need that individual correction that they can get one-on-one with a chatbot. So it's not all good or all bad. It really depends on your purpose and starting with what your goal is. What is your true goal? And then decide how you want to proceed.
Great advice. Which SDG has been the hardest to create a lesson around, and why?
I love your faces while
Yeah.
you're thinking that.
Which has been the easiest to create a lesson around, and why? Let's start on that.
I kind of jam them all together. I mean, I don't specifically say today we are learning SDG 5.
Yeah.
I think that's come up today in my conversation. Like we explore them, and there are multiple SDGs that affect one topic. I think don't try to isolate them. They're all very interconnected. And I can't think the 16 and 17, I would say they don't come up very often. I don't know. How about you, Beatrix, Andrea? Can you answer this?
So the goal 17 is partnerships or creating partnerships for the SDGs. We've had actually kids that make it actually also work. We have had kids that created little SDGs from children for children kind of things with QR codes, and they have been integrated. There are certain favorites, certainly zero hunger, healthy living, life on Earth, recycling, etc. So those are also much easier to integrate into a level 1, 2, and 3 type of curriculum, because those themes jive very naturally. And the same for elementary content as well. We don't have students think so often about how can we form partnerships. Those are more projects that we as Fairfax, we've connected with the 17 rooms projects through the university level. So there we are connected through the other goals potentially that might not come up as much because they don't connect as much immediately to the curriculum. But teachers have found a way to weave them all in. Because they are actually, I would venture to say, the global classroom participants are actually really involved in these partnerships. So they are living goal 17, whether they are reflecting on it or not.
Great. And this last question, thank you, is related to the kind of the app and Google Translate, but will the threat of AI development be able to eliminate the study of idiomas? Many students do not want to study languages because they are already simultaneous translators. Some universities are eliminating language departments, as we sadly know. Anyone want to?
Yeah,
I probably has an opinion about this too.
And I think, yes, we will say a caveat, these are all opinions. I don't think language is dying out. If all you have to do is leave our country, and the rest of the world is interconnected with multiple languages at all times. North America, US is very different in that aspect. So no, I don't think, and I think a lot of the cuts due to our humanity programs are politically driven these days. I'm sorry to say, not necessarily. We don't bring a lot of money to the table as world languages, so we're not really saving anything in the budgets, which is what a lot of people claim. But no, I would say we're holding steady. We do have a fight ahead of us, and maybe we need to change to be more relevant as world language educators. Things that we're doing here and talking about on this panel, make ourselves relevant and useful would certainly help us.
And I'm going to jump in. if I may jump in on this, because we do see this with colleges and in the K through 12 system, and as far as closing of programs and departments, but surveys of embracing multilingualism and accepting multilingualism is actually quite high. It's around 80% of the people surveyed across the United States actually welcome and believe this. So that we have this assumption that because we are closing programs and departments of languages, that there are people that are not interested in languages, but there actually are out there. And I think this is what all of your work that the three of you have been doing here have really been making, again, those connections and communication with people across these linguistic and cultural communities to show the importance and the value of languages. So we have to, unfortunately, end. This could go on for forever, and I didn't mean to interrupt. But can we, what kind of final thoughts do you can you share with the educators that we have here on this webinar who are passionate about creating more sustainable future through education? Maybe
I'm gonna answer that first, only because you were just talking about AI. So
okay,
and the future relevance of world languages. And I would say a sustainable future depends on global cooperation, and you cannot learn that from an AI tool. What you learn from interpersonal relationships is intercultural responsiveness, and you learn about how to be a global citizen. That's not something that you can replace with a piece of technology. And that is what keeps world languages relevant. So wherever you are in your journey in exploring the SDGs, sustainability in world languages, I encourage you to continue. A baby step is still a step.
Well said, Andrea. And we do have a generation of students in front of us who are interested and who feel the immediacy of a need to take action, local, national, and global, wherever it might be. So let's capture that. Let's tap into that and get kids talking on and taking action and what actions they take. So it gives that, again, it brings me back to authenticity of language. And by combining language with action, with learning how to collaborate across these cultural differences and discovering, oh, we are all human and we need to figure out how to share this planet sustainably and responsibly. And I want to be part of that solution is very powerful when you're trying to communicate about that. So it gives them, the SDGs really give them the impetus to communicate with others. They see the immediate need that they need to talk to somebody in another country. AI can facilitate that. Somebody, I was on a panel somewhere else, somebody else on that panel, based on that AI question, said, just because we invented the calculator does not mean that we stopped learning and studying mathematics. So they encouraged us to start thinking in terms of that and reinventing or looking at authenticity of communication, and how can we drive language learning and language acquisition and make AI a tool for that. And yeah, there you go. That's it. I could talk hours about this.
Fantastic. Well, in closing, on behalf of both ACTFL and the Language Connects Foundation, I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our extraordinary panelists and Dr. Ferry, our facilitator. I also want to thank Klett World Languages for their very generous sponsorship of this award, which has made this possible. So thank you, Mahe and team. And in the chat is the link to this year's awards nominations portal. I encourage you to apply or nominate yourselves or others, not just for this Klett Award, but for all others. So there's a link in the chat. And I also see there are several questions about receiving certificates of attendance should you need. We will send that link as well. And thank you. I'm going to pass to Britt-Marie. Do you have any closing remarks as well?
just a big thank you to all of you for being here, for sharing your time, your ideas, these amazing projects. It's so valuable, and I know from the comments and all of the reactions that all of this is really inspiring to all of the educators that are here with us today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.